Welcome to Nice Bossy with Emma Siebold. Hello. This is Emma. Welcome to episode 4 of my brand new podcast, Nice Bossy. Now, this episode is a very special one because I'm going to tell you a little bit about the origins of Nice Bossy and why it's so important to me. Now, I am the mother of a beautiful, exuberant, passionate, dynamic 6-year-old girl. And I remember about 2 years ago when she was in preschool being called into the daycare center where she was doing preschool to talk about the fact that she was, quote unquote, too bossy. So the male head of the preschool, we had a meeting and he said, Isla's really bossy with her friends. They're not enjoying it. I think she needs to, you need to talk to her at home about being bossy. And I took it all in and I thought about it. And I went away and I went home and I reflected on the fact that young girls and women are constantly told that they are bossy. Now, this is not news to anyone listening, I'm sure, that girls are told they're bossy, whereas boys are assertive and boys are leaders. I don't ever hear a boy being referred to as bossy. So I reflected on this and I thought about the lessons that I wanted to teach my daughter, me being a strong, confident, passionate, dynamic woman, just as she is, how I wanted to teach her that there's actually nothing wrong with being bossy. There's just a better way to be bossy. And I would certainly consider myself to be a very, very bossy human being. I don't think anyone who knows me would say that I'm not bossy. However, I like to think of myself as what I've coined nice bossy. So the best way to explain it to you is exactly how I explained it to my daughter. And I told her, my darling, you are beautiful and you are strong. And I mean beauty from the inside out, of course, beautiful on the inside. But then she knows that when I talk about beautiful, that's what I mean. And my darling, you are beautiful and you are strong and you are clever and you are a leader. Do you know what a leader is? No, mummy, what's a leader? A leader is someone who can inspire and encourage people to do things with them. Do you know what a leader is? Yes, mummy, now I understand what a leader is. So you are all of those things, and they are wonderful, wonderful characteristics. There's just one teeny tiny thing that I want you to work on. When you're bossy, can you try and be nice bossy? So instead of saying, come and play with me, or you have to play dolls with me, and obviously that's a terrible stereotype, but you get the ideas. You have to build car tracks with me. That's something that she loved to do at preschool. You have to build car tracks with me. How about you do it this way? Hey, Jess, I'm going to build car tracks. Please come and build car tracks with me. Or would you like to come and build car tracks with me? So trying to teach my beautiful spirited daughter that she could still be a leader. She could still be strong and passionate and dynamic. She could still get people to do what she wanted them to do, but by being nice, using her manners. So that opened up a whole new world for this beautiful creature that I am helping to grow into a grown-up human being, that she could really get what she wanted just by being nice. So I don't want bossy to be a dirty word. I don't want bossy to have a negative connotation, and it definitely does not in my house. I want my daughter to be free to think of bossiness as almost like a superpower, as long as she does it in a way that's nice bossy. Now, my entire childhood, I was called bossy, and I actually didn't mind. I don't remember thinking of it as a bad thing. I had the nickname at my primary school as being called Miss Bossy Boots. And to me, I really do equate bossy. These girls that are being called bossy as young girls are the ones that will turn out to be leaders, as I hope that I have done. But what I have done, and the way that I've done it is I really try very, very hard. And actually, it comes quite easily to me. It comes quite naturally to me. But I really do emphasize the importance of being kind, being empathetic, being caring, and treating people with love and respect. So everything I do in my business, I'd love to say that everything I do at home as well, but my husband would definitely say there's probably a lot more just plain bossy at home than nice bossy, but we'll leave that to the side for now. But in my business, everything I do, and I try to make every exchange, especially one where I do have to be in this leadership role, I do try and do it with these characteristics: empathy, kindness, caring. And it really came to light to me about 6 months ago, maybe even longer ago, right in the middle of COVID, where I had a very, very bad experience with another female leader working in another company that I had some dealings with. And I don't want to go into it too much, but she treated me really, really, really badly in front of a number of her subordinates. So set a really, I believe, a terrible example for what a female leader should be. And there was very much a sense on this, in this exchange, of her as a woman really wanting to dress me down and put me in my place. And like I said, I don't want to go into too much detail, and I certainly don't want to talk about the who's and the where's and the what fors, but it honestly was the single worst experience that I've ever had in my, over 20-year career now. And it took me a while to get over it. And I really reflected on it, trying to work out what it was about this exchange that bothered me so much. And it was really about how this woman treated me. And I was in visible distress. So I was visibly upset. It was a Zoom call, and I was crying and sobbing. And it was a really quite, high, tensions were high because it was right in the middle of COVID. And she refused to let me get off the call and just dressed me down in front of these three people, two women and a man that worked for her, on a video call. And it was, like I said, it was the single worst experience that I've ever had in my professional career. And once I got over the shock and the sadness and I think a little bit of, I don't want to say heartbreak, but just this real deep sadness at having been treated this way by anyone, much less in a business environment where I really, really do hold myself to high standards and treat people with the utmost respect and care and kindness. And that's how all of my business dealings are carried out. And what I realized was, what really, really bothered me about this exchange was that she treated me that way as another woman. It really did feel like a power exchange. And the positive side of that is that it inspired me to record this podcast, and hopefully one day I'll write a book titled Nice Bossy, and I'll bring all of these experiences that I'm going to talk about in the podcast to life in a book. But I turned this really terrible experience, this really example of what I believe to be the worst example of female leadership. So we've all heard the stereotypes that, women who get into really senior positions, they're ball breakers, and I hate that expression, but they're ball breakers. They prioritize business over everything else. And that's not true of all female leaders. It's this sub-segment of female leaders, and they're the ones that I believe really give female leaders a bad name. And so this experience really inspired me to start to talk openly about my style of leadership and my views on this idea of being nice bossy, because I want to set a really positive example, and I want to start to set, I guess, the standard for what I believe women leaders should be doing. And for that reason, I absolutely love Jacinta Ardern. She is doing such an amazing, incredible job running the country of New Zealand. And there's this amazing quote, and I don't know exactly what it is, but I'll find it and I'll put it in the show notes. But there's this amazing quote where she talks about people have said she's less of a leader or less strong in the past because she's empathetic, because she's soft, and she believes that it's the complete opposite. And so do I. It's a really, really nice quote, and she definitely articulates it better than I have done. So I'll pop it in the show notes. But she's a beautiful example, and that's sort of the standard that I want to hold myself up to, and that's the standard that I want to inspire other women who might be listening to my podcast. I want to inspire you to be nice bossy, to be a really positive female role model for your children, for the people you work with. If you're in a leadership position, to be a kind, caring, empathetic leader and treat people with love and respect first. So it's International Women's Day week this week. So International Women's Day was Monday as I record this podcast. It will be released soon, I hope, really, really soon. And it was a really lovely, this is a nice little segue into another anecdote that I want to tell. In thinking about this concept of nice bossy and thinking about myself as a woman and as a leader and as a mother and as a wife, and thinking especially watching the mothers that I work with in my business and how they manage and juggle having children and coming back to work, and the challenge of parental leave and how that fits in, and often in many cases the cost of coming back to work, or the cost of daycare to come back to work, is as much as, if not more than, the salaries that they're coming back to. Hopefully that's not the case in my business, but it is a real issue that women face, and that is how to manage this juggle, and how women are, the opportunities that women have in the world, the pay gap, all of these things, all of these concepts and notions and societal inequalities that we face as women. And in reflecting upon them, both for the sake of Nice Bossy, both every time International Women's Day rolls around, working with so many women in my business, I had this really wonderful realization. And I wonder whether this is why I've been able to become Nice Bossy. But I had this wonderful realization, and I thought back to my childhood and to my parents, my role models, and realized that I was never told that. It never even occurred to me that women would be paid less than men. It never occurred to me that I would have trouble getting a leadership position. It just didn't occur to me, because that wasn't the way that I was brought up. I was brought up with parents who, both by example and by the words, by what they told me that I could do anything. My dad, who gets a mention on this podcast every now and again, and I know that he'll be listening to this episode, my dad told me from a young age, and told me repeatedly again and again and again, you can be anything. You can do anything. There is nothing in this world that you can be. You can be the Prime Minister. You could be the next Kylie Minogue. Now, that, my friends, is just a little, I guess it's a little indication of how much my dad loves me. I have the very worst singing voice that anyone has ever heard, yet his belief in me was such that he thought that I could learn to sing and be Kylie Minogue. But I would much rather be the Prime Minister. I wouldn't want to be the Prime Minister, but I'd much rather be in a leadership position. I love the life that I have now. But so getting that lesson from the most important male role model in my life. My mother was an incredible woman. She did her master's, she did her doctorate. She finished her career as the Associate Dean of Research for Australian Catholic University. She was a full professor. So she wrote articles, she wrote books. She was a really incredible woman. And watching her, and my parents separated, so she was a single mum, my dad was a single dad. Watching my mum do all of that as a single mum, I never, ever, ever believed or conceptualized that there was any reason why I couldn't be or do whatever I wanted. So that's what I want for my beautiful daughter. And that's what I want for you who are listening to these podcasts, for your daughters. I want you to believe and know that you can be and do anything in this world. We have a long way to go in terms of equality, but the more women that stay in the workforce, the more women that return to the workforce, the more women that believe that they can be anything, that they can do anything, the more women that work towards finding a way to juggle motherhood or whatever other priorities they have in their life with work, the more we get to move towards this notion, this ideal of equality. And I know that we will get there. And I don't know that it will happen in my lifetime, but I surely believe that it will happen in my daughter's lifetime, because there are some amazing, strong women. And I see it in my beautiful daughter, who it's almost a little bit scary. I think she's like an X-Men version of me. She's more forthright, she's more strong-willed, she's more powerful. So if I can teach that little delight, that little treasure to be nice bossy, the world is her oyster and there is no stopping her, and she will help us work towards equality. So I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. I've absolutely loved sharing my views on Nice Bossy. I don't want to undersell how important it is for women, how much, there are women, whilst I've been very lucky in my life, other women face different prejudices and different struggles. And I don't want to underplay that at all. But I do want to encourage you all to get out there, be nice bossy, teach your daughters, your friends' daughters, the women in your life, teach them that they can be nice bossy too. And I can't wait to share more with you on this podcast about my journey and about how my ideals in business and how I've conducted myself. I have loads of stories to tell you about the highs and the lows, the journey that I've been on. I want to talk about resilience. I want to talk about tragedy. I want to talk about bouncing back. I want to talk about how you look after people. I want to talk about raising women up. I have so much to share. But thank you again for listening, and I can't wait to see you next time. Please leave a review if you can spare the time, and I look forward to chatting to you again really soon. Well, that's it for today's episode. If you want more from me, visit my website, emmasebold.com, for show notes and all sorts of goodies. Or follow me on Instagram at @emmasebold_. Thanks again for listening, and I hope I can help you live your richest, most magical, most successful, and aligned life. Until next time.